Hello, welcome to the 37th episode of And the Tournament Winner Was, a conversation with the horse racing prize winner from the past weekend. I'm your host, John Gaspar. My guest this week is Ed Deicke. Ed is an excellent cash game player based out of New York. Ed won the Del Mar Fall Challenge in 2023 and more recently took first place in the Laurel Autumn Championship Challenge. Ed, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. How long have you been betting on the horses?
So I'd say I'm going to turn 60 this October. I think maybe when I was about 13, 14, my dad took me to Belmont Park. I grew up in Queens, New York. My father was a horse player and took me to Belmont Park. Now, I probably didn't start betting. I probably started throwing in bets when I was 16 or 17, something like that. And I've been playing my whole life.
And how did you end up finding horse race tournament play?
So I had played in tournaments like in the late '90s at a place called Sports Haven in New Haven, Connecticut. It had like this. It was this big, like kind of like an OTB type place, but it really wasn't. And they had some contests there that I played, and I did okay in it. But then I didn't play again. My next contest after that would have been 2017. I played the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, and the reason that I played it was, I saw that it was $10,000 to enter, but from what I understood, you got tickets, to the races on Friday, ticket to the races on Saturday, free food, free booze for 2 days. And I called a dear friend of mine, my friend Steve Redden, who unfortunately has passed away this past summer. And I said, Steve, for what we're going to spend on tickets and food and booze, this is like $2,000 worth of free stuff. Why don't we take $5,000 each and chip in and go into this thing? And he told me, well, maybe if I hit something at Saratoga over the summer, I'll go in with you. So he ended up hitting a big pick five for $8,000 or $9,000. He put up the 5,000. I put up the 5,000, and we went out and we played. First day we turned 7,500 into 6,200. But then the next day we got hot. We had Bar Gold, we had Wahida, we had Good Magic, and we ended up coming in ninth. If we had known what we were doing, John, at the time, we would have done a lot better than ninth. I mean, we had a tremendous day handicapping, but didn't really understand how to win a tournament like that. And so we ended up winning a ton of money, and that was it. I mean, I never looked back. I got to the NHC that year, and I've been in the NHC every year since. And I'm pretty much in a tournament, every Saturday.
Yeah, when you pick winners like that in your first Breeders' Cup, I mean, you're both lucky and unfortunate that it was your first one. You're lucky,
Exactly.
right? It's a
Exactly.
great cash, but then
Yeah.
you're hooked. You're stuck with
Yeah.
us for the rest of your time.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny about that too because that tournament's a really, really hard tournament, right? Because you got to play over 2 days. You have to make multiple bets, both days. And so, 2 years ago, I decided I spend my summers up in Saratoga that I would play the Breeders' Cup from my apartment and not go to the Breeders' Cup for the challenge. So I played 2 years ago from my apartment. I think I came in like eight or nine. I think I won $80,000 or $90,000. And I was like, see, that was a smart decision. You were in your office. It was quiet. You could make good decisions, blah, blah, blah. This year, I made a giant win bet on She Feels Pretty, who led to like the last 50 yards. Same
Yeah,
thing, to win about 80, 90,000, got nailed. As soon as they hit the wire and I didn't win, I said, why am I not at the Breeders' Cup? So I vowed after that to go to the Breeders' Cup every year and play in the challenge. And part of the winnings of my Kentucky Derby betting challenge is that I got a free entry into the Breeders' Cup betting challenge. So I'm going to Keeneland this year with bells on. And I also vowed after this weekend, John, to never miss a Kentucky Derby again. So I'm going to go to this year's Kentucky Derby coming up, try to defend my title.
that's fantastic. Excuse me. So Ed finished first in this past week's Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge, sponsored by Twin Spires. What tools do you use to handicap it?
I was a sheet player for a lot of years. I used to go, if I don't know if the name Len Friedman means anything to you, but Len Friedman was basically Len Ragazin's partner on the Ragazin sheets, and he used to
Yep.
host these seminars that I found unbelievably fascinating. In fact, Len Ragazin's book, The Odds Must Be Crazy, is one of my favorite books. Not that I'm a voracious novel reader. So I used to go to see those seminars talking about bounce theory and condition patterns and how horses, move forward, move backwards. Then I started using the Thoroughgraph product, Jerry Brown's product. I've used over a lot of years. Um, Now I use that. I start a race, handicapping a race by looking at speed figures. What speed figures do these horses have? What speed figures do I think would take to win the race? And then that relative to odds. I look at workout reports a little bit, here and there, depending on the situation. And I buy the daily racing form anywhere, anytime I could ever buy it. I don't like to buy it and print it. I like to buy it in my hand,
Yeah.
which is really easy to do in Saratoga, not easy to do in Florida, where I live most of the year. But anytime I can buy a racing form, I buy the racing form. So I use the daily racing form as well.
Great. Now, do you have any preference for a live contest format? Meaning, do you prefer a minimum number of races, or do you prefer like the express bet style of just bet your whole bankroll?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Come back again.
So, in a live contest format for a live money, do you have a specific format that you prefer? Meaning, you have to bet a minimum number of races, like the KDBC, you had to bet seven minimums, or do you prefer like the express bet style where you just have to bet your whole bankroll, whether it's one bet or multiple?
You know, I see the value of both. I think I've done pretty well in the tournaments where you only just have to make one bet. Um, but after the result I had in this tournament, I guess I've done better now. This is changing the math of my of how I've done over the years. But I think both are valid. I think it's fine. I think I'll play either style. But I still try to stick to the same thing, which is I'm in a tournament like this. If you look at the plays I made, I basically made a couple of small plays, but I look to just go all in at one point. Um, I very rarely, John, will play the first race in any tournament. I very rarely play the first few races in any tournament, only because I usually find that most tournaments, the early races have small fields and the later races have big fields, and that's because the tracks want pick six carryovers, right? So they want the last six races of the day to be the six biggest fields. So I feel like as a handicapper, I have more of an advantage when there's big fields rather than when there's small fields. So I do tend to bet towards the end of the contest. Doesn't mean I won't go all in with one or both of my entries, sooner than the end of the contest. But usually I'm trying to come from behind. I'm trying to see what it's going to take to win a contest, know what the number is that I'm trying to beat, and use that knowledge to create a play for myself.
And from that ilk, or using that strategy, it seems to me that you tend towards longer priced horses, 5 to 1 and up in some of the smaller contests. And even in this one, you had a 20 to 1 shot. Is that fair too?
No, I wouldn't say. I
Okay.
would use a cold exacted the same way,
All
right?
right.
If I like 2 to 1 on top of 4 to 1, and that exact is paying $35, and that's 17 to 1. I've won a lot of contests. It's funny because I read a lot about other um, contest players that have done really really well playing doubles because they feel like they get value in the double payoffs. I haven't had much success with that. In fact, very little success that I had with doubles. My best plays have been win bets and cold exactas, either cold exacta boxes or just a straight exacta, one way. Those have been the bets that have been most successful for me.
Do you think that's because you have a real good feel in those bets that you're making, that you're going all in on those cold exactas rather than trying to stack two races back to back?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in taking in all the data I can possibly take in and then making a bet. And I know it sounds crazy, but just sometimes with a double, I'll play a double, and then I'll look at the horse in the paddock in the next race, and he's lathered out, and he's fighting the handlers, and I'm like, oh god, I can't believe I have this horse in the double. He's not winning. So even though I know there's value in the multi race, I kind of like to see my horse before I bet because John, you want to use a good example of it. I mean, I thought the Derby this year was interesting. I thought Incredibolt had some kind of chance, but boy, did he not look good in the paddock before the race. And so that was an easy throw off for me. But I don't think horses win the race in the paddock, but I think they lose them.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't really love the double. I like to be able to see the horse before I actually go all in.
Yeah, so that's super important. Some of your strengths are around physicality. And when you're playing
Yeah,
a double, you can't see what the horse looks like.
I mean, I'm no Maggie Wolfendale, to say the least. She knows more in a tip of her pinky than I know in my whole body about what a horse will look like. But I know what annoyed looks like. It's just being around horses just spending a little time at a lot of time at the racetrack. We go out when we're up in Saratoga out for the morning workouts, and you see these horses, and they're around three people. They got the trainer, they got their groom, right? They got an exercise rider. Now all of a sudden you're asking these horses to walk in front of 150,000 people and keep your composure. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask. And if you watch the replay, I think Sherry DeVoe did a little video that she put out there. I mean, when Golden Temple walked over, the horse acted like there was absolutely nothing. Like he walked over with a lot of confidence. So it's definitely something that I look at. I wouldn't say I'm a tremendous student, but if I do see a really bad sign, I can change my mind.
Yeah, I was married. I definitely know what annoyed looks like.
Exactly.
So the KDBC was held on Saturday, May 2nd. The tournament was a $5,000 buy-in event. 3,500 went to your bankroll and 1,500 went to the prize pool. You could make win, place, show, exacta, trifecta, and daily double wagers. You had to wager at least $250 on 7 races. You had to make sure you wagered at least your $3,500 starting bankroll. The tournament included the first 12 races from Churchill. The tournament ended on the Kentucky Derby. They gave away 1 BCBC seat, 2 NHC seats, 3 KDBC seats, and over $300,000 in cash to the top 10 places. How many entries did you have in the contest, Ed?
Well, I had two. I actually, John, won 6 entries to this
Oh, wow.
contest. I was in so many other feeder tournaments, but 2 of them I deferred to next year. One of them I sold to somebody, and another one they gave me credits for. So I won a bunch of other contests going into this to qualify. And that's what I would say to people out there who are listening that want to get involved in this. Go to the Twin Spires website, and look at the tournaments that they make available. $5,000 is a lot of money, but they have $200, $100 tournaments, $50 tournaments, $40 tournaments, and a lot of them feed into this tournament. And you got the whole year, to get to next year to get into this tournament. I really think it's a great way to play. You could play for a smaller amount of money and then get an opportunity like this to play for a real great score.
Absolutely. I think Twin Spires has done a real service to contest players and tournament players. They've given you, like you just mentioned, a structure of cheap to expensive. They've given you plenty of feeder opportunities. I think out of the 235 entries, I would bet over 160 fed into the tournament over the course of the last year. And I think it's a real credit to both Darren and Jeremy over there at Twin Spires and their tournament
I
program.
agree, and I can tell you that a few weeks ago they had me and a bunch of the other players on a focus group. They asked us to come and go on a Zoom meeting with a bunch of other guys that are on the tournaments a lot, and they asked us what we like and what we don't like. And at the end of this thing, a half hour, 45 minutes, I said, "Wow, you guys should be running, every one of these racetracks," because they really understood what the players were about, what they were looking for, what made sense. They really listened, and they made some changes. They add some tournaments after what guys said. So yeah, Darren and Jeremy are doing a tremendous job, and I think this thing is really taken off for Twin Spires as a source of revenue. So one of the reasons I wanted to come on with you, John, and to talk about this is to bring awareness to how great these tournaments are and how they're growing. And this year was 235. I think last year was 180, 190. Hoping next year there's 280, 300, because if we can continue to grow this thing, boy, it's going to be a big pot to the winner of this thing 2-3 years down the road, and it really is just exciting.
Yeah, I think that's well said. So, how do you approach live money tournaments? Is it just another day of wagering for you, or do you have special considerations when you're thinking about these tournaments?
I think, I basically, to give you a recap of kind of this tournament this year, I last year I was in this tournament and I got to the end of the tournament and I had $2,800 in one entry and 2,100 in the other. The leader had 21,000, and I love Sovereignty. I thought that horse was a great 8-1 shot, and I was like, I don't think 25,000 is going to win this thing, but if Sovereignty wins and I don't make money on this Derby, it's just a crying shame. So I bet 2,800 to win on Sovereignty, and I bet 2,100 to win on Baeza, thinking that, maybe Sovereignty gets a bad trip and Baeza's a really good, I don't know if he was 12, 13 to 1, whatever it was. He was a good price. Race ends, I hit for 25,000, and the leader only had 21. I'm like, well, I won't win this thing because I'm not the only one that could figure out Sovereignty. He's only 8-1, but how many guys could pass me? 5, 6, 7. All right, I'm going to get a top 10. I'll make some prize money. Maybe I get lucky and I get right on the edge and get a seat into one of these contests, whatever. Johnny ended up coming in 15th. And then I looked at the bets that all the guys that beat me made, and they all did the same thing. They all bet Sovereignty, but they all had more money than I did. And the guy that won, Frank Misteri, ended up with about 60 some odd $1,000. And what I took away from it was that with the size of the field being what it is, it's going to take about 70,000 to win this tournament. So I played the whole day on Saturday just to try to get to 70,000. And my strategy was to take my one entry at 3,500 and to just try to keep it there as best I could. And the other entry I wanted to bring up to 6,000, 7,000 to make a win bet on emerging market. So I knew the horses I was going to bet. I was going to bet 3,000 win on Golden Tempo 2 weeks before the Derby was ever run. And I late came to emerging market as my other horse that I liked in the 8 or 10 to 1 range. So when the 11th race was over, I had 5,700 in one entry and 3,000 in the other. 3,000 I just put right to win on Golden Tempo was the first bet I made. But with Matthew Majunkin at 66,000 in the tournament, my 5,700 at 8 or 9 to 1 on emerging market wasn't going to get me to the lead. And the Japanese horse, Danon Bourbon, he was 14 to 1, and he took an unusual amount of play in the late double, the pick 3. He was bet all over the place. And of course, John, there was a bit of a betting coup earlier in the day by the Japanese horses, or one of the Japanese horses. And so I decided to change my mind and to throw out emerging market and to put my 5,700 on Danon Bourbon. And so those were the two bets that I made. I mean, basically, I made two bets thinking that, 70 some odd thousand would be good. Maybe not to win, but, top 3.
How easy and or difficult is it to change your mind like that? Is it just strictly you weren't getting the odds you needed on emerging markets, so you're going to go with your next best opportunity?
It's just the most painful thing you can do. I mean, I literally sat the whole day to put $7,000 on emerging market, and then I didn't do it. So I went into my phone account and I bet 500 to win on emerging market in my pocket. not because of the $4,500,
no.
But to ease the pain of the of the 50,000. And of course, it wouldn't have eased the pain, right? I would have been, what are you doing? You bet the Japanese horse. You waited all day to bet this. So it's the most painful thing that you do. So the woulda, coulda, shoulda aspect of this, John, is immense, right? And it haunts handicappers, it haunts tournament players, left and right. And I'm like, to me, I have a very, very specific thing. If you didn't consider the bet, then you can't, grouse after the race is over. If emerging market had won that Derby, to say I considered that bet would be an understatement. I was locked into that bet for 7 hours and changed my mind. But, it is what it is. The result was what it was. You got to learn to live with it.
Yeah.
because you're going to make mistakes. Not mistakes. You're just going to make judgments that are the wrong judgments. You couldn't decide between the 3 and the 8, and you bet the 8 and the 3 wins. It's going to happen. You have to kind of move on from
Yeah, that $500 bet I consider to be insanity insurance.
it. Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
That's just something. Just something to get back. But I was happy to have lost the money.
What was it that you liked about Golden Tempo that you zoned in on him very quickly in the day?
It's funny. People say hard work works, and I this year for the NHC, I didn't think last year in the NHC that I played very well in 25, and this year in 26 I really want to play better. So I spent the entire winter watching fairgrounds races because I just thought that during the NHC the year before I wasn't really prepared there the way I want. I spent a lot of time watching Turfway Park races too
Yeah.
over this winter, which is another track that's part of the NHC. And what happened? I had a really really good spring betting Twin Spires contest with the fairgrounds. I did really really well. I did really well in my pocket. I felt it was a track that I was really on top of. I went out to the NHC and I had maybe the worst weekend handicapping of my life. I finished 700th placed out of 750. And I think I bet 10 fairgrounds races over the weekend and went 0 for 10.
Right.
But what I did learn over the winter at the fairgrounds was that the dirt course there, despite the fact they have a very long stretch, it played for speed
Okay.
all winter long. It was very, very difficult to come from behind and win at the fairgrounds this winter and into the spring. And so I had bet Golden Tempo. I had him in one contest when he won his second start, when he won his first stakes race. The third race that he was in, it was an impossibly slow pace. He had no shot. He kind of paired up his figure. The next race that he was in, they put blinkers on him. He finally got a little pace to run into. He came running, and then at the top, around the 8th pole, he ducked to the inside, and then he kind of galloped out well. And he just struck me as a horse that was like not really. He hadn't had the light bulb moment yet. It hadn't really all come together yet. And he's a curling. He should get better with age. Sherry DeVoe just kind of had a mediocre fairgrounds meet. Was starting to heat up at Keeneland and at Churchill Downs. And the other thing, John, about watching the fairgrounds races this year is, boy, I've developed a newfound respect for Jose Ortiz, who, if he broke to the lead, he was very, very tough to beat as a speed rider. If he didn't break to the lead, he went right to the rail. He saved ground, and he came running with late runs. He had a tremendous meet at the fairgrounds as a rider. And I kept thinking to myself, there's no way they didn't offer him further ado. There's no way they didn't offer him commendment. And he wouldn't take off this horse. He stayed with this horse. He said it was out of loyalty, but he wasn't being loyal if the horse was working terrible, right? I mean, he had to feel good about the way he was there every morning with that horse the whole winter, and he had to feel good about the horse, or he wouldn't have stayed with that mount. So to me, it was just a lot of factors that all added up to a horse that I just thought was going to be a really good 20-25 to 1 shot. And so I had target betting him. People said to me, did you just make a pot odds bet in the last race? I said, absolutely not. I wanted to bet that horse 2 weeks before the Derby even started.
Yeah, I watched it must have been the Louisiana Derby when he came on the outside, looked like he was making a run, and then it seemed like inexplicably ducked to the rail. Whereas I thought if he stayed outside, he might have beat Emerging Market and Pavlovian. But I don't know, just whether it was greenness or whether he was spooked. I'm not sure exactly what it was. And that kind of turned me off of the horse a little bit. I'm glad the gallop out and your confidence in Sherry and Jose kept you on the horse.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And you can look at that both ways, right? Greenness is a weird thing, Greenness can be a reason to bet a horse and a reason not to bet a horse, right? You could say, because that was definitely a green move. You're right. I mean, the horse definitely made a green move. But to me, sometimes it's like a light bulb switch moment. And that being said, I lost more money on Baeza last year than should be allowed to be lost, because I just kept thinking that horse was just as good as Sovereignty, and I was wrong. He was not, although he may be this year. We'll see. His first start back this year was quite a trip again. But you could also argue with Baeza, John, that he's found a way to lose. A lot of different ways to lose. And again on Derby Day, he found a way to lose. Where, in my humble opinion, he was tons the best in that race. And today he sits in the gate and spots the field 5 lengths. So it can cut both ways. I mean, I think in general you want horses that are professional and don't make green moves. But every once in a while you find a green horse that all of a sudden grows up. I think the most important thing is, if you are going to bet a horse that's a little green, don't take 6-5. You know what I mean? Take odds, because sometimes if they're green, they stay green. They don't ever really put it together. Only time to bet a horse like that, I think, is if you're getting really good odds.
Yeah, I would say you're betting that horse on the come. So you need that horse to be good odds because you're expecting or hoping for something to change.
Correct.
Awesome. So watching the race, at what point did you think you had a shot with Golden Tempo?
At no point. I was rooting for Denon Bourbon.
Yeah.
Denon Bourbon opened up a 3-length lead at the 8 ball. I had 5,700 to win on him.
Yeah.
So my wife and I are watching, and we're jumping up and down, and then he starts to crumble at the 8 ball, and I see horses flying on the outside, and I'm like, literally, I picked the horse up 3 strides before the wire. And when he got up, I jumped up and down. And you want to know the funniest part of the story, John? It's incredible. So after I win the race, right, I go to see the results. But Twin Spires, there's so many bets that are made. It takes them a while after the Derby to make this thing official. And it took over 2 hours to make it official. And I go into my entry to look up my bet to make sure I didn't fat finger it and bet the wrong horse, or I didn't put 7 bets in, or everything that you could think could go wrong, right? And it says in my entry that I had $3,054 to win on the 19, and it pays $73,662.98. So now I let out a sigh of relief, John, right? I got the money.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I'm winning the tournament, but I got the money. So then, do you know what I did? I went to every single person who was in front of me. I was in 78th place. And I looked up their bets. And do you know what I found?
Nobody else had the number 19 Golden Tempo on top of that kind of money.
0 for 77. No one had him at all.
Yeah.
No one cashed for $1. Unbelievable. I mean, the horse is 23-1. So if there's 77 guys, right, there's 3 guys, right? But of course, they might have just played him in an exact, and they didn't have, right? It didn't mean that they were going to cash big. But, 77 really top-notch handicappers, it's a bit of an anomaly. So now I still might not have won the tournament, because I didn't bother, John, to go through
going behind you
to 235 to look at what every person did. But I'm probably first or second. I was very likely first. Maybe someone behind me played a $1,000 exacta box, 119, or just played 19-1 for $1,000, whatever it was, and clipped me with some crazy bet that you couldn't fathom someone could have. But I was very likely 1-2, and then of course the results came out, and I had won. And
that weight is in what is the word, interminable. It's like Twin Spires is so good updating the leaderboard on a regular contest that it's done immediately. And when this one wasn't done immediately and it kept going and going, it's like, what the F? What is going on here? Why aren't they doing this for me?
It was a very long 2.5 hours. And I mean, my oldest son is a psychiatrist. I should have got him on the phone to walk me through, because I was like, I don't know, man. I either won this thing or I came in second, and I might have won this thing. And, when they hit the wire, I was like, I wasn't sure if 73 was enough, and I have a friend, my friend Dave Kaplan, and he's my consigliere. And I said, Dave, what do you think? And he said, third. I said, you're probably right, but you could have said, you should have hesitated a beat before you said that so readily, But so when I came out first, obviously, was jumping up and down and thrilled and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So when the dust settled, it was only a handful of players. They have Golden Tempo. The people that otherwise had it, I think, finished out a double. Michael Domabil, who moved up like 150 spots, and then a couple of people in 8th, 9th, or 10th. So You comfortably finished first with $73,000. Matt McJunkin finished second. Chris Larmy didn't move anywhere, and he finished third. So with the win, you kept your $73,000 bankroll. You got prize money of $127,000. I'm assuming you took the BCBC seat.
I did.
And so you effectively turned a 23 to 1 shot that you liked into a 70 to 1 shot. That's good work if you can get it.
And John, the Breeders' Cup this year is being held on my 60th birthday.
Oh, even better.
So if any of you out there watching and want to get me an early birthday gift, you're not going to get me a better one that I got this weekend. So don't bother. Just come to Keeneland in October, and we can celebrate.
And wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you, man.
Well, congratulations, Ed, and thank you for spending some time with me to discuss your strategies and your successes.
You got it, John. Anytime. Thank you for promoting tournament play. I hope everybody out there listening gets inspired like I am and joins with us in playing these great tournaments.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed.
You're welcome. Thank you.